First and foremost, just rules. Whenever you go anywhere, there's house rules. So we look at the rules first. First thing is intention. Why are you here? Why am I here? إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّةِ. So we make intention that whatever we do, whatever we learn for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, and then we also give da'wah for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, and also we practice and we bring into action for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. The second thing, which is for me first and foremost, and not for anybody else, is that I seek refuge, al-a'yadu billah, seek refuge from Allah Azza wa Jalla, from riya, from kibr, and from misguidance, from hasad, as Mufti Sahib mentioned. Because Hafiz Sahib said, TikTok, social media, I am not a social media influencer. This was done with the ijaza and with the mashwara of our asatiza. Because they said, there are many people on social media but not our ulama. Al-a'yadu billah, I don't class myself as an ulama, because we have many of our asatizas for that. Why do I seek refuge? And I seek refuge from Allah Azza wa Jalla, because the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says about in hadith, he says, Al-ulama'u du'atun ala abwabi jahannam. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says that there's ulama, there's a type of ulama who stand on the gates of hell calling people towards Jahannam. And I ask Allah not to make me from amongst those people. Because when kibr comes, when riya comes, that's exactly what's going to happen. So today, inshallah, I've been asked to talk about Dhul Hijjah. Within Dhul Hijjah, the most important act is Eid, Dhul Hijjah, Hajj. But from within there, it is really the story and the seerah of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Now we will no doubt be here for hours talking about the seerah. So what I've done is I've broken it down into 5 sections. And after each section, we'll see if we have appetite to go further. Ibrahim alayhi salam or seerah bayan korte shomoy, এটা ইন আমরা ঘন্টার উপর ঘন্টা যাই করি। আমি করছি কিটা যে এটার একটু ব্রেকডাউন করে লিছি। ব্রেকডাউন কিলাম করছি? খই মাছ দি পয়লা খাইলা। খাইয়া আনলে যদি পেটো জায়গা থাকে তে গেলা গরু গোশত। গরু গোশত খাইয়া আনলে যদি পেটো আরো জায়গা থাকে তে গেলা আচ্ছা ইলিশ মাছ এগু খাই। এর বাদে জায়গা থাকলে দইত গেলা। এর বাদে জায়গা থাকলে চা খাইলা। এর বাদে জায়গা থাকলে গোয়া খাইলা। রোল আস্তে 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 যাইব। যতটুকু পারি আমরা আগাইব ইনশাআল্লাহ। So I'm not going to talk about the entire seerah, the story. I'm not going to tell you the story. We all know the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam. What's important, you know the Quran, brothers, young brothers and sisters, the Quran is not a book of story. It's not your Harry Potter book. It's not a novel. The Quran is there to teach us lessons. So when Allah Azza wa Jalla talked about the seerah of the Ibrahim alayhi salam, it wasn't so that we sit back and we enjoy the story. It was so that we derive lessons from there and that we reflect it within our lives. So we look at the first section. The first part of the seerah is the childhood of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam's father was his name was Azar. Now we look at their relationship first. And I will talk about the relationship between father and sons and daughters and families, and we're going to go into a bit more inshallah. The first and foremost, the relationship between Azar and Ibrahim alayhi salam was volatile. They had a heated relationship. And I want us to think about our relationship with our sons and our daughters. Ibrahim alayhi salam got cut off from his father. His father disowned him. Just want you to think about, within my family, I know people that I can count that have been disowned by their fathers. So I want you to look around and think. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, disowned by his father, disowned by his family, he was chucked out of his community, and also by his nation. All of this, despite having all of these problems, One thing Ibrahim alayhi salam didn't do, he didn't go against his father. His father put him in the fire. He put him in the fire to burn him, to kill him. He said, I'm going to kill you. But Ibrahim alayhi salam never ever said a word against his father. He had the utmost respect for his father, utmost love for his father. He had submission for his father. So now we need to keep a reminder of this point. And as we go throughout the journey, we'll see where and how we can bring changes into our lives. Now, families. There are two types of families. One type of family is what you call a functional family. You know, everything's working, everything's fine. So a functional family is of just one type. It's functional, it's working. The second type of family is what we call a dysfunctional family. And a dysfunctional family has 5 types. And it's within our society, not just in the Bengali community, Indian community, Pakistani community, Vietnamese community, Sri Lankan community, throughout the world. This is a worldwide trend. So a family of dysfunction is of 5 types. So 5 types of dysfunctional families. We're also going to be looking at childhood traumas. Just want us to think about our children. And Banglayo hoy mujhetu karon amra lage onek shomoy আমরা যারা বড়ই গেছি বড়ই বুঝতে পারে না নি আগে মাটি জই না কারণ একটু বয়স হইয়া হানলে মাটিলে কাটে তো একটু বয়স হইয়া হানলে মাথা যায় আন্দন মানুষ কইবা অতগুলি বেটা আর লম্বা লম্বা গফিরা হ্যাঁ এর লাগি বুঝি অনেক সময় হিকমতের সাথে মাথা লাগে childhood traumas. Think about the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Think about the trauma he went through in his life. As a child, he was disowned by his father, he was put into the fire, he was tortured. He went through many psychological traumas. So I want us to think where childhood trauma begins. Childhood trauma starts, it begins with the parents. And it's the way the parents talk to their children. There's a condition called ADHD. An ADHD disorder is something that is slow. A person who has this, a child who has this, they are slow in processing. So in comparison to someone their age, they might be a bit slow, they might be a bit behind. But often as parents, we don't realize that we become the ones that make these matters worse. How? First and foremost, childhood traumas, you know, these illnesses, anxiety, depression, ADHD, all of these illnesses develop as the years go on. But they start from childhood and how the parents talk to them. আমরা অনেক সময় আমরা বাচ্চাইন্তরে গরু, ছাগল, জানোয়ার মানে যা আছে সকল নিজেও বাচ্চাইন্তরে অনেক সময় গালিয়াই আমরা রিয়েলাইজ করি না আমরা জিনিসটা বুঝি না আমরা বুঝার ক্ষমর কারণে যে আমি যে আমার বাচ্চারে যে কথাগুলা কইয়া এই কথাগুলার কারণে বড় হইয়া হারলে এই বাচ্চাটা তো পরে পড়ে যাব we don't realize that your child may have ADHD disorder that because of that reason they're behind, they're slow, and so you're comparing them with another son, with a nephew, with another child, and you're pushing them back. So childhood trauma, we see from the seerah of Ibrahim alayhi salam, childhood traumas start from the beginning, and it is how the parents talk with their children. So what we need to do is you need to change the approach in how you are talking to your children, in how you are conducting your day-to-day matters with them. That's what needs to happen. Another thing that's important, do not compare your children. We have this problem as parents. We compare our children. So from the beginning days, again a lesson that we take from the life, from the childhood days of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, if you think about it, Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, he compares Allah, compares God. He looks at the stars, he looks at the moon, he looks at the sun, he looks at everything, and he's like, this has to be my Allah, and he starts to compare. You reflect that lesson into our lives. How many of us actually compare our children. If not, I think 90% of us do it. We don't realize, but we compare our children. What is the ramification for that? What is the impact of that? I'll give you an example. You have 3 children. An elder son, a middle son, and the youngest son. None of these sons, daughters maybe, either way, none of these children will have the same experience growing up. None of them will. The eldest son usually is more responsible. The middle son is usually, and this is just a trend, we're not saying any specifics, but the middle son, middle child, as they say, is the neglected one. Anyone here middle child? Alhamdulillah. You're a middle child, I see you smile. The middle child is usually the neglected one. You're not neglected, are you? Well, mashallah, you're in the masjid. Subhanallah. And usually they say the youngest one is the what? The most spoiled one. Now, you cannot compare all 3 of them. What you need to do is you need to, and this is unfortunately within us, we take the same approach with all children. We have the same rules. So for example, we say to a son, if you don't go to madrasa, this is the rule. I know it's hard, but this is we can change. We change, we become better fathers, better mothers, better parents, society will flourish inshallah. You cannot have the same rule for all of them. I'll give you an example of myself. My son, I have alhamdulillah 3 children, right? 2 sons and a daughter. I do not have the same rule for all of them. And often people say to me within my family, they'll be like, that's not fair. My daughter doesn't go madrasa, it's okay, no problem. My son doesn't go madrasa, no PlayStation. Now, as children, they will not understand because they will think, why is that not fair? But a girl will have masail. She will have masail that will not be the same as the boy. So therefore, you cannot treat them equally. In the same way, my elder son and my younger son. My younger son has allergies, for example. So if he eats something and he flares up, he's not going to go madrasa. But the older son will be like, well, that's not fair. So therefore, you cannot have the same rule right across your children. There has to be a difference in rule. Now what I want to say to my brothers, mashallah, I see a lot of young brothers here. You know, one of the problems we've got in our society, we become weak. As the days go on, right, we've become more and more weak. I want to say to my brothers and to my sisters, never ever self-diagnose. That's one of the worst things you can do. When I say self-diagnose, a lot of people nowadays, I got depression, I have anxiety, and I'm not making a mockery. Mental health is serious. But people, you become weak, and I'm going to reflect it. This is directly from the seerah of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Think about the traumas that he went through. But at no point did he self-diagnose. He remained strong. What happens when you have a bit of anxiety, you have a bit of a stress, you have a tight chest, and then suddenly you think, you know what, I've got anxiety, I have depression, and you start to self-diagnose. You're not a psychologist. If you feel that you are unwell, go to a professional. But when you self-diagnose, 2 dangers happen. The first thing is, you become weak within yourself. Instead of fighting the problem head on, you run away from the problem. Because you've got an excuse, you're finding an excuse. Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he had the problems, he remained steadfast. He told his dad, he told his family, he told his society, he told the nation that my Allah is the one. Despite everything they've done to him. The second danger is that if you find an excuse, you will slowly slip away from deen. Not overnight, but slowly, because you will start to compromise. I don't feel great. I'm not going to go to the masjid today. I'll pray at home. Then the masjid stops. I'm not going to go out, I'm going to pray at home. I don't feel great, I'm only going to pray my fard. Because the fard is, they say, as Sheikh said, Musa was saying, you open the book, fard is compulsory. So I will only pray my fara'id. Sunnat, nawafil is sunnat. You don't need to pray. Khalas. Then I'm in bed. I've got pain. I don't feel great. I don't like to see sunlight. And the salah goes out the window. This is just an example. So we shouldn't self-diagnose, as we learn from the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Now let me talk to you about the dysfunctional families in Islam. This is not, so subhanAllah, Islam teaches us this. We learn from research the different types of family, the dynamics of a family. If you have a dysfunctional family, please change it. If you know someone that has a dysfunctional family, get them help. The first type of a dysfunctional family, the first one is what we call a substance abuse family. Substance abuse, drug use, alcohol use, intoxicants. Alcohol is one of the top 5 reasons for domestic violence across the globe. So the substance abuse family, Allah protect us. Look around. Birmingham is full of it. Our youngsters are full on drugs. And it's our youngsters that are pumping the drugs into our other youngsters. So we need help. If you are a father, there's nothing to be ashamed of. Wallahi, there's nothing to be ashamed of. If you are on haqq and your son or your daughter has gone astray, don't hide at home. Come out, seek help. Speak to the local ulama. Speak to professionals. আমরা অনেকে মনে করি শর্মে গরমে কিতা কিলা মুখ দেখাইতাম কে সমাজও ফুয়াই আমার ইজ্জত মারি লিছে ফুড়ি আমার ইজ্জত মারি লিছে এগুলো তো আল্লাহর তরফ থেকে আপনার একটা পরীক্ষা আইছে আপনার ফুয়া বাদ ফতে গেলেও কি আপনি তো হক আছে আপনার ফুয়া বুঝছে না মদ খাই লিছে জোয়া খাই লিছে গাঞ্জা খাই লিছে যে তো বাদ করে লিছে আপনি তো হক ফতো আছে আল্লাহ তো আপনার যে বুঝছে না তো আল্লাহ সমান নজরে দেখতে পারবেন কিন্তু যে বুঝছে বুঝিয়া খাম ঠিক করলো না তারে তো কিয়ামতের দিন জবাব দিতে হইব আল্লাহর কাছে গরর মাঝে দরজা ঠেলা মারিয়া মানছে দেখি নিবা যাইয়ার না শর্মে গরমে সমাজ ছাড়িয়েও যাই লাগে মানুষে অনেকে দেখা যায় ফুয়া গাঞ্জাকু রয়ে গেছে মধুরি রয়ে গেছে এই সমাজ ছাড়িয়েও যাই আর কি কিতার লাগে সমাজ ছাড়িয়ে দেখতে আপনি Why should you leave society? Your society is there to help you. Your community is there to help you, my brothers. আমরা খোঁজো না কই আইছি বলে রে বাবা আই উলামা ওনাকে যাইবা মুফতি সাহেবকে যাইবা বলে আমার ফুয়ার লাগি দোয়া করি রে আমার ফুয়া গো হয়ে গেছে আরে বাবা আপনি নিজে কিতা করছেন আপনার ফুয়ার লাগি আমি যে দোয়া করতাম বাবার দোয়া আল্লাহর কাছে গেলে কোনো ফন্দাও থাকে না আপনি খোদিন আপনার এই বাচ্চাদের লাগি দোয়া করছেন আমি কারোর খুঁটা দিলাম না হজাক করার লাগে পয়লা আপনারা হজাক হইতা আর আপনারা বড়সির বাড়ি খাইয়া আমরা হজাক হইতাম বুঝছেন নি So the second type of dysfunctional family is what I call a conflict-driven family. Trust me, we've got them in our society. Now the conflict-driven family is the one where you go into the house and they're just full of arguments. They're just full of arguments. There's constant shouting. There's constant blame. A glass has broken. So what? But the mentality is such that you have to blame somebody. And again, we take this from the seerah of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ibrahim alayhi salam, actually let me explain it to you and then we'll link it back. This conflict family, full of accusations. He did this, she did this. It's toxic. They fight over the remote control, the TV remote control, they'll fight over that. They'll fight over the iPad. We see it within our children. Our children fight over PlayStation remotes, iPads, TV remotes, they fight, which is normal. But you have to be conscious that you are not creating a conflict family. Because when you approach this child and you are angry with them, hey, remote khigge mangise, iPad khigge mangilise, bachete doraiya dusha dushit lagi jai. They get scared and they start blaming each other. So that's why we've got to be important that we're addressing the conflict right at the beginning. Question for you brothers and sisters, right? What does a conflict family breed? A conflict family breeds a conflict family because it will just create more. it breeds severe mental illness. A conflict family will create a disorder within the family to such extent that research has shown when these children grow up, when your sons and your daughters, when these children grow up, they're unable to maintain a relationship. Have any of us ever thought why the divorce is on the rise? As Mufsa mentioned, like Hafsa mentioned, I do counseling, right? Again through mashwara. Because nowadays, the slightest problem, talaq. I don't want nothing to do with that. আমরা কেউ জিজ্ঞাসি নিজের সমাজ আগর জবানাত বিয়া শাদী তো ঠিকই আমরা দাদাইনতে বাচ্চা চাইতে সারাও তো ঠিকই আসলা আজকালকার জবানাত আমরা বাইন তোর কিতার লাগি ভাই বোন তোর বিয়া ঠিকই না কেন একটা কারণ হইছে যে ছোটবেলা থেকে যদি এই যে একটা ফ্যামিলি টাইপ কনফ্লিক্ট ফ্যামিলি যেটা হয় যে দরবার দিয়ানোর যে ফ্যামিলি এই ফ্যামিলিটা যদি আপনি ছোটবেলা থেকে ঠিক করেন না বড় ইয়া হারলে এটা বাচ্চাইনতে ভাই বোনিনতে সমাজ তারা পরিবারে তারা টিকাই রাখতে পারে না ফ্যামিলি টিকাই রাখতে পারে না তো তারা গেছে কিটা সলিউশন কিটা দরবার দান করো হাম ছোটবেলা থেকে মা বাবা দেখছি দরবার দান করি আইতে that is the solution, that's what they look at. Study has shown that a conflict family can create borderline bipolar disorder. It can create so you'll have bipolar. It can also create personality disorder. 1 minute, a person's like this. Next minute, they switch into somebody different. It can also create histrionic diseases or histrionic disorder. You'll find people like this can't keep their jobs. They won't be able to maintain it. And they'll always be paranoid and they'll have anxiety. That's the second type of family, which is what we call a conflict family. The third type of family, third type of a dysfunctional family is the violent family. Always fighting. You go to the house, there's always, you see holes in the wall, you see holes in the door. Don't tell me you haven't, I have seen it. I'm sure you have. You go to someone's house and you go upstairs and there's a hole in the door. And what do they blame? They blame the kids. You see holes in the wall and you think, Allahu Akbar, what's going on? You talk to the kids and they're always reserved. A violent family. These children, one of the dangers of having a violent family, brothers and sisters, is your children, your love, your life, they will run away. And when they run away, they will find their identity somewhere else. And they will absorb that identity. Which is why we see across the country, many Muslim children from practicing Muslim families, al-iyadu billah, they become murtad. They denounce their deen. Because they found identity somewhere else. And then what happens? These children, they hate themselves because of being born into this family, and they hate that they were even brought into this world. And then they go on to the sides of suicide. আমি দেখছি আমরা দাদাইন্তর সমবয়সী বাবার সমবয়সী মানুষ মুরব্বী মানুষ দেখরা নাতিন আসার ফ্যামিলির মাঝে সমস্যা কিন্তু জবাব কিতা দেই তারা রে বা মাতিলে কইব রে বা তোমার কিতা আইছে গেছে হরাইয়া লুকাই ডরাইয়া থাকেন আমি অনুরোধ করি ওরকম মুরব্বী হলরে আপনারা ঠিকই আছেন গতিকে এরা টিকাও কা ডরাইও না ডরাই থাকে না আর কিতা করব নাতিয়ে মারবো আর ফুয়ায় মারবো আর কিতা করব কোসাই কিন্তু আল্লাহর কাছে তো গিয়ে জবাব দিতে পারবা বলে আমি বেইনসাফি দেখছি আমি ইনসাফ করছি আল্লাহ আমারে মারলে তো নিজেরকে মারবো ফোরেরকে তো মারতো না ইয়া রাস্তার ভয়ে তো মারতো না ইয়া That is why it is so important when you see it, seek help for these people. The fourth dysfunctional family is what we see is called an authoritarian family, authority. It's like a very hierarchy type. In that kind of family, there's only one thing, it's rules. They function by rules. And there's a higher authority, and it's what this person says goes. There's no other way. There's no listening. There's no give and take. There's no compromise. There's no conversation. It's rule. It's a one-way direction family. What happens with that? When you don't allow your children to converse with you, to tell you how they feel, when they grow up, They're going to be on medication, antidepressants straight away, because you're not focused on that. They're conscious of time. The fifth type of dysfunctional family, and this is the last one. The fifth type of dysfunctional family is what I call the emotionally detached family. There's no emotion in that family. The children, example, you got the children going to school with their dad or their mom. And the driving there, there's no conversation, it's a dead drive. Forget the road trips. Even the trip to the school is a dead vibes. They don't talk. And when they do talk, it's always about, education. What have you done? What, it's just, there's no emotion. It has to be emotion. It has to be shafqa, mahabba. It has to be love. MashaAllah, how you're holding your son. Wallahi al-azim, you're doing it in a masjid, and I'll tell you, Allah's a witness. Your son will, inshallah, hold you when you get old, inshallah. I've seen that. Say Ameen, inshallah. We need to have that affection in our families, because when we don't, our children go away. And then by the time Imam Sahib says, "Oh, dua kariye, marfu'a, আমার কথা হলো না। আরে বাবা কথা হতো না কেন? তোমার ফুয়া কথা হতো না কেন? তোমার রক্ত, জন্ম তুমি দিছো, তুমি খাওয়াইছো, বড় করছো, তোমার কথা হতো না কেন?" এটার লাগি হলেন না, because তুমি মহব্বত করছো না, মায়া করছো না। এখন যেসাই জিগাইতে পারে মায়া, ঠিক আর একটা টপিক আর যাইয়ার না এখন। But in this day and age, right? There are two types of these emotionally detached families. The first one is when it's all about studying. You'll go to some households, right? Allahu Akbar. From the morning from tahajjud, never mind morning, from tahajjud till, awwabin and isha and tarawih, it's all studies. There's guests in their house. No, my son's studying, my daughter's studying. Guests want to come. No, don't come because they've got studying. I'm not undermining education here, but I'm raising awareness so that you wake up and realize what you are doing to your children. Education is not the only, and I'll talk about it, I'll give you an example in just a moment. Let me finish off what I want to say. That books are not the only way, but I'll give you the other options as well. The second type of emotionally detached family is where it's just entertainment. That's it. It's fun. This is the best family in the world. Why? Because we don't go to school. Feel like going to school, no problem. Go maktab, no problem. Madrasa, I don't want to go, no problem. Dad, I want PlayStation 5, 6, whatever, iPhone 17, whatever the latest iPhone is. What is the latest one, by the way? What's the latest iPhone? 15. Okay, it's the latest iPhone. I want the iPhone 15. He's a 10-year-old boy. No problem, son. And you think that's the best family? No, it's not. Why? Because there's neglect in that family. When you sit down, the dad's on the phone, the mom's on the phone, the son's on the phone, the daughter's on the phone. It's just gadgets. So a way to fix that, and it's a simple way, to make a functional family, to make it work, and this is something we have to do. Wallahi, we have to do this. Again, Zobana Asil, Baba in the restaurant, the Hamporta, Fekru Hamporta, Sekdo, Shulon, Unishon, Adaronda for the Hampors and Abai. Baba in the Hamporta, the Hamporta. Is Obanat, Shatwon Tatunda, Hampora Lagina. There's a rule. To make a functional family, you need to go back to the basics. What are the basics? You need human interaction. Proper, and I'm talking quality time, proper human interaction. And the best way, day to day, when you sit down on the dastarkhan or on the table, wherever, however you eat, sit and eat together. And when you sit and you eat together, you remove the gadgets. There's no gadget. This is family time. And the father is the only one that can instill that. The mother supports it. The mother will support it, but the father needs to put that rule in place. So I say to my brothers, when you are at home, you need to sit and converse with your children. Now, if you're Bengali, speak in Bangla. If you're Gujarati, speak in Gujarati. If you're Pakistani, speak in Urdu or Punjabi. Speak in your mother tongue. It is an asset to have multilingual in this day and age. আমরা চিনতে বাংলার একটা শব্দ হইতে পারতাম না। আমার ও দেশে জন্ম, কিন্তু আমার বাবায় ওইটা গড় ইংলিশ মাত নাই। ইংলিশ মাতিতে তোমার স্কুলেও মাতিও, গড় বাংলা মাতৃভাষা। আমার ও দেশে জন্ম, কিন্তু আমার হুজেন্দ্রে জিগাইয়া দেখিও ইংলিশ বাংলা মাতিলে ওলা মুখর ভাই সাইড থাকবো তারা। দোষ আমার বাবার নাই, দোষ আমার। কিন্তু আমরা লাগি করণীয় কোনটা, আমরা খাম কোনটা, বইয়া তার লগে মাথার লাগে যে সময় আপনি মাতৃভাষায় মাতিবা সমস্যা যদি দাঁড়ায় ইংলিশে তোমার কইতে নাই রে বাবা আমার ও একটা সমস্যা তোমরা বাংলায় কইব করবত মার লগে বাবার লগে সম্পর্ক কোনটা আজকাল তো সম্পর্ক শেষ কোনো সম্পর্ক নাই nowadays you haven't got no relation with your parents. What we're saying is that we got to converse in your mother language. If you got with your son and there's somebody else with him, you go to pick up your son from school. I've seen it. You go to pick up your son, daughter from school, and they're upset. And then you know what? You realize something's off, and you ask your son. He only knows one language, which is English. Now, if he tells you in English, his friend's gonna know what he said. But if he knows another language, language of the father, language of the mother, he'll be able to slip a sentence in, and you'll know and be able to address it there and then, inshallah. On this point, are we okay for time? Shumel, আমরা আবু কয় মাস একটু শেষ হইছে না কয় মাসের দিন না এখন ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ হইছে আর 5-10 মিনিট বাদে দেখি ইনশাআল্লাহ ঠিক আছে নি is everyone okay for time inshallah let me just talk to you about this concept of eating with the family. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says that when you eat together it brings you closer as a family. The only creatures, I say to my brothers, because you know what, we have a habit of going out and eating with the boys and chilling out. I'm as guilty of it. You've got to do both, have a balance of everything. But the only creatures that don't eat together are beasts and, you know, wahshi, so what's the English word for wahshi, haywan? Yeah, like, you know, wolves, lions. Yeah? They're the type of animals that don't eat together. What they do is they will go and take their food. They'll smash their food and then that's it, they're off. Another type is spiders. Do you know about the spiders? Do you know how spiders? Let me tell you quickly about spiders, right? It's a lesson on spiders. I'll do a lesson on everything, right? You know spiders, subhanAllah. So you got the husband spider, the wife spider, male and female, right? So when they mate, and the woman, the female spider becomes pregnant, what does she do? She eats the male. Good man. The female spider eats the male for nourishment. Then you have this female is now pregnant and she gives birth to all these spiders. As soon as she gives birth, the female spider, the wife, she has to run for her life. Why? Because the children, they will eat up the female spider. And then these siblings, brothers and sisters, they have to run from each other. Why? Because they will end up eating each other. That's why it's important that only haywan, only creatures, only they do that. See, Allah Azza wa Jalla, He mentions it in the Quran that وَإِنَّ أَوْهَنَ الْبُيُوتِ لَبَيْتُ الْعَنْقَبُوتِ. You know, deen is so beautiful. This is why I don't shy away. I love books of the way. It's very open, very deen doesn't shy away. So why we gotta be sugarcoating it? Allah talks about Ankabut and He gives us an example that even spiders, وَإِنَّ أَوْهَنَ الْبُيُوتِ, that the houses of spiders, they're the most divided houses. We are Muslims, we are mu'mins, we are believers. Our houses shouldn't be divided. Now to address anxiety, it's not coming back to this childhood trauma we're talking about. I'm going to talk about this. You know, subhanAllah, I said we broke into 5 sections. We're still on the childhood. We've not even gone anywhere. Right? There's so much to talk about. Allahu Akbar. To address your anxiety, to address your childhood trauma. Many people have childhood trauma. They don't realize it. Even I have childhood trauma. We don't realize it. But to address your childhood trauma, there's 4 things that you need to do. And it's a type of forgiveness. Because remember, your trauma, for a child, the closest person to you is your mother and your father. Naturally, when something goes wrong with you, and it's happened sadly, if you've been abused, if you've been victimized, and your parents haven't seen it, parents haven't picked it up, you naturally blame them for it. So all of your trauma from your childhood is linked to your parents. So therefore, the first thing that you need to do is you need to forgive your parents. Forgive your parents Because you were the first one, you were a child. For them, it's the first time. They don't know they've never read a manual. They became parents overnight. They didn't have a degree in how to parent. So you know what? They may have made a mistake. So it's best that you forgive them. Why? From the Quran we see it. رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. We say it together, inshallah, for those who have parents, and for those who don't have parents, may Allah elevate their status in Jannah, inshallah. رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. The second thing is, forgive yourself. To address childhood trauma, forgive yourself. Because everything bad might have happened to you. What you got to remember is, that's in the past. You got your whole life ahead of you. And so where do we take this? We again take it from the Quran, where Allah Azza wa Jalla, He mentions in Surah Al-Zumar that إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ جَمِيعًا. That Allah has forgiven all of your past sins. Now if Allah has forgiven you, brothers and sisters, why are you holding on for? It's in the past. Let it go. The third one, to forgive, to address that childhood trauma and anxiety, forgive others that are hurting you. You know, you got people around you, make your life hell, make your life miserable. As Mufsa was saying, they key your car out of jealousy, out of hasad. They look at your children and they want the worst for you. Forgive them. Forgive those who are hurting you, because they are weak. They are weak. And we take this from the Quran, where Allah Azza wa Jalla, He mentions in Surah Al-Nisa, خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. Allah created people weak. Weak. People are weak. Just forgive them. Because you know, when you forgive them, you become the better person. And lastly, the fourth one is to forgive others. Sometimes you see something, and it could be your brother, it could be your uncle, it could be, subhanAllah, it could be even be your dad, your mom, whoever. We're weak, we make sins, right? You may have witnessed something, and I'm talking about childhood trauma. Allah protect us. Adultery is on the rise. You see your dad, your mom, your sister, someone, you've witnessed them committing adultery, doing a bad deed, whatever it may be, gambling, alcohol, whatever it is, forgive them. You've witnessed it, forgive that, because it's hard. Because when you hold on to that trauma, it's very hard to get past it. And again, remember, we are not created to judge. It is only Allah Azza wa Jalla who can judge. And so again, where do we take this? We take this from the Quran, that إِنِ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ. إِنِ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ. Only Allah is the one that can judge. So don't go around judging. So when you want to address childhood trauma, these are the four things that we need to do. Now I'm going to stop here. Although there's still lessons that we can take away from the story. College গেছি না, বাবার ডিগ্রি করছি না, আমরা সুর ডাকাইত মধুরি জোয়ারি হকলে চাই কিতা আমার বাচ্চা বালা হোক। প্রত্যেক মা বাপর একটা স্বপ্ন থাকে আমার বাচ্চাটা বালা হোক, পড়ালেখাত বালা হোক। এখন আমরা স্কুলও পড়ছি না, না আমরা জীবনে কলেজের মাঠ এখন দেখছি, আর ভার্সিটি তো দূরের কথা, এবারে তো আমরা গেছিও না, এবার ইফতো দিও আমরা গেছি না। এখন আমার বাচ্চায় কিলান পড়িলে ভালো হইবে এটা আমরা জানি না। আমরা মনে করি কিতা যে না, এখন খালি কিতাব লইয়া দেও, বুক লইয়া দেও, আর দিনের রাইতে খালি তারা পড়াও, খালি পড়ো কা টিউশন ঘুরে থাকতে মাস্টার যখন এই রাখলাই বলে না পড়ো, খালি পড়তে দাও, আর কোনটা নাই, এরা কোনো কাম নাই, পড়ো, কোনো মা তুই আসলে খালি পড়া। এটার লাগে আগে বাড়বার লাগে। আমরা একটা জিনিস বিশেষ করে আমরা লাগে খেয়াল করার দরকার, যে শর্ত condition, I'll explain to brothers in English as well because it's beneficial for everyone and for the sisters as well. The shart, qabuliyat, shart, qabiliyat, shart nahi. Successful hoite hoile, kamyab hoite hoile, qabiliyat zaruri nahi. কবুলিয়ত হইছে জরুরি। কাবিল মানে কিটা আমার ভার্সিটির ডিগ্রি আছে, আইএ বিএ মেট্রিক যেটা আছে সকলতা পাস, আইএসসি সকলতা হয়ে গেছে আমার, কিন্তু যে বাবারে যে সালাম করতাম এই শিক্ষাটা জীবনে পাইছি না। যে একজন মুরব্বীরে পাইলে যে মুরব্বীর সামনে আমার ফাওয়ে খাফে রনো বলতে বলতে এটার লাগি বাবা আমার আব্বা এখন ধরলে এখন খুদাইবা বলে মুরব্বী এখন তো তোর সাহস কিলা না, because that's how we were raised. So sorry, let me come back and finish in Bengali and I'll come in English inshallah. তিনটা তরিকা আছে শিক্ষা দিবার লাগে বা চিন্তরে শিক্ষা দিলে খালি কিতাব লইয়া শিক্ষা নাই। তিনটা তরিকা আছে, আমরা আকাবির হলে কইছেন তিন তরিকা আছে। এক নম্বর তরিকা হইল কিতাবত। যে সময় পড়ালেখা পুরা শিখছেন, বুক পড়া শিখছেন, ওয়ান ক্লাস 2, আমরা এরারে জোর দিতাম আরো বেশি করে পড়ো, কিতাবর দিক দিয়ে মেহনত দাও, কারণ এগুলো থেকে কয়েকটা শব্দ বার হয়ে আইব, আলফাজ বার হয়ে আইব যেগুলো তুমি তোমার লাইফে এগুলো ইউজ করতে পারবা। ফাসিহুল লিসান যে কয়, আমরা বাচ্চান্তরে ফাসিহুল লিসান বানাইতে হইব। ডাইরেক্টলি ইব্রাহিম আলাইহিস সালামের ঘটনা থেকে এগুলো সাবিত হয়। পুরা ঘটনার সময় নাই, নমরুদের লোকের সময় ঘটনা, ও ঘটনা থেকে এগুলো সাবিত হয়। ফাসিহুল লিসান হওয়া খুব জরুরি এটার লাগি। 2 নম্বর হইছে যে সময় একটু বড় হয়ে গেছে, 8, 9, 10 বছর হয়ে গেছে, একটু ফিট একটু মজবুত হয়ে গেছে, বুঝছেন নি, মায়ে কইলে আরো উল্টা কুদাম যে সময় তার আরম্ভ হয়, এই সময় জরুরি হইছে সোহবত। 2 নম্বর তরিকা ইলম হাসিল করার সোহবত। ফ্রেন্ড বন্ধু খেয়ে আসেন, খান লোকে তারা খাইরা, খান লোকে গল্প সল্প করা, এই সময় কিন্তু আমরা রিস্ট্রিকশন করতাম না। আমরা অনেকে মনে করি কিটা 8 বছরের ফুয়া 7 বছরের ফুয়া ফুড়ির লোকে মাতিলার, এই করিলার সেই করিলার, এটা হারাম। যে সময় তোমার আমার নিজের নজরে রাখিয়া, তাই না মুসা, ইউ মাই হ্যাভ আ ডিফারেন্ট ভিউ অন দিস, নিজের নজরের মাঝে রাখিয়া তুমি এটাকে সুপারভাইজ করিয়া করতে হইব। কারণ এ যদি আজকে ফুড়ির লোকে একটা মাতে না, তার সময় বয়সী 20 বছর বাদে কিন্তু গিয়া যে সময় ভিতরে জাগিব, সময় গিয়া আপনারা কইব নি যাইব কি কাম কটাই আইব। That's why it's important that they have the life experience. I'll come in English inshallah. 3 নম্বর তরিকা হইছে যে ইলম হাসিল করার, আমরা আকাবির হলে কইছেন সফর। এখন আমরা লাগি অনেকে বাংলাদেশ ছাড়া আর কোন দেশে না, বাংলাদেশের আমার কোনটা নাই, আমি দেশে পড়তে বছরে একবারও যাই, আমার কোনো ইয়ে নাই, কিন্তু আমরা লাগেছে আমরা দেশ ছাড়া কোনটা বুঝিও না। 3 নম্বর তরিকা হইছে ইলম হাসিল করার সফর করতে। সফর করলে হয় কিন্তু আপনার যখন বাচ্চারা থোয়া বড় হইব, 8 বছরের এর কোনো কাম হইতো না, 15, 16 যে সময় একটু আকল হয়ে গেছে, বাড়ি হয়ে গেছে, দিন দুনিয়া হক হারাম সবটা বুঝের, ও সময় একটা সফর করোকা। এখন এর মানে না আপনি টিকিট কাটে দুবাই যাইতা, আপনি ও দেশে সফর করোকা। আপনি ওয়েন্সবুরি বার্মিংহাম আইছেন, আপনি ওয়েন্সবুরি দাওকা, ওয়েন্সবুরির মানুষ বার্মিংহাম হোক, কারণ হিনোর যে রোয়াল স্টাইল, হিনোর রোয়াল স্টাইল দিনের এইতে বেশ কম। হিনো আমরা ফান্তা বাদ দিয়ে ভাত খাই, আর হিনো আপনারা কই মাছ দিয়ে ভাত খাইলা, বেশ কম আছে। তো সফর করলে একটা জিনিস শিক্ষা পাওয়া যায় যে মানুষের দেখিয়া খার দুঃখ খার কষ্ট তুমি বুঝতে পারবা। I'll briefly explain in English and then I think we're going to have to wrap up. 3 ways, you know, we put our kids in such situations that we force them to read, you know, we want them to go far. And it's because we've never been educated ourselves, right? We've never been to college, never been to university. हमें क्या पता है यार, हमें कुछ पता भी नहीं है। स्कूल कभी कॉलेज के दरवाजा देखा है हमने, यूनिवर्सिटी का रास्ते भी नहीं पता था, उस तरह तो हम जाते ही नहीं है। तो हम अपने बच्चों को क्या सिखाएंगे? What are we going to teach our children? That's why we think everyone says study, right? So we think study, invest everything in studying, but don't put too much pressure, balance it. And the balance is in 3 ways. To gain experience and knowledge, there are 3 methods of doing it. One is kitabat, your books. So when your child is young, they're just about learning how to read, 5, 6 years old, encourage them to read more. Sit with them, read novels, books, whatever. But you know what's going to happen? They will become familiar with words. They'll understand bigger words, and they will become fasih al-lisan. And the benefit of fasih al-lisan, I'll explain it at the end. The second thing is that when they're a bit more older, when they're like 11, 12, 8, 9, whatever you know, the sohbat, put them in right crowds. If you are isolated within an Asian Muslim community, restricted, get them to experience other places. Take them into a football club, and they'll see white boys, African boys, Polish boys, whatever it is, girls, whatever it is. They will understand how culture works. And what that happens then is that becomes experience. Because you speak to your own boys, you're ready, you can bang them, you're ready to do anything. You stand in front of someone in unknown territory and watch, I don't want to say the word, but watch what happens to that. Watch what happens to you then at that stage. So you push them into these areas so that actually they are comfortable in speaking and being open about it. This is what Akabir taught us. As-suhbah. When they're a bit more older, when your sons and daughters are a bit more older now, and they're ready and they're giving you the lip, teens, take them out and suffer. Travel with them, because through traveling, that is another method of gaining experience, because you're able to see and understand and appreciate the lives of other people. And then you know what? I'm not discriminating against anyone. You don't have to catch a ticket to go to Dubai and live a 5-star resort. No, just within this country, travel in different places. Just 10 miles apart, even within Birmingham, even Smallheath and Solihull, day and night difference. Take them to different masajids and show them. You know what? Look after the namaz, look after salah, look how the youngsters are still sitting. Look how their conduct is, look what they're doing, look how they're coming with their parents. Wallahi al-azim, I love it, beautiful. I remember when this was a tin mosque. But look at how ikhlas, what is done to this place. Because it's created, you brothers have done it out of ikhlas, that's why you see the nuraniyat, you see the fruits here. So I'm going to pause here, and I was going to say one thing as well. The benefit of this, being fasihul lisan, what is the benefit of it? It's being good with your tongue. If you fall in a situation, just quickly, Ibrahim alayhi salam, the spotlight was on him. His neck was on the line, because he broke the idols and they were going to have his neck. What did he do? He was quick, he was snappy. On the spot, he gave an answer. He said, you know what? Look at the biggest idol, because he's got the axe. Remove the spotlight away from him. That's why we've got to make sure that our children are snappy, because so then when they are in any political field, even in the politics, you think deen, subhanAllah, just on this point as well. Politics is part of deen. Remember this, brothers. Our Akabir, Shaykh al-Hind rahmatullahi alayhi, he was a politician. He was a Shaykh al-Hadith, but he was also a politician in the British Empire. Put your children into politics, put them into medicine, put them into solicitors, law, make them an alim. Don't just limit what you want to do. But the first and foremost, the first thing is fasihul lisan, being great with your tongue, being great with your words, inshallah. We'll stop here and I'll ask the brothers, do we want to carry on or are we okay with this, alhamdulillah? Don't be shy, by the way, I'm very... Have you stopped? Khalas? No. Sasa, Robi Sasa Razikai. দুইটা কথা রইছে শেষ করতাম নি কারণ আমারও লাগি গেছে পেট্রোল কয় মাসের গফ করতে করতে আমারও লাগি গেছে এখন পেট্রোল I just want to talk about this. It's one of the beautiful lessons that we take when we're still on the childhood of Ibrahim alayhi salam. I don't know what I was thinking when I was bringing all this up. One of the beautiful lessons that we take away from the childhood of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and I want parents, listen to this very carefully, and I want children as well, listen to this very carefully. Allah is demonstrating here that when you show etiquettes and good manners to your elders, when you become an elder, then Allah will create such youngsters for you that will have etiquettes and manners for you. And we see this from the submission of Ismail alayhi salam. When Ismail alayhi salam, I'll do this last point and then we'll finish inshallah. When Ibrahim alayhi salam went to his son and he asked his son, he says, you know what, I have seen a dream that I need to do something. What's your response? Ismail alayhi salam, what did he say? Oh my beloved father, do what Allah has commanded you. Satajiduni inshaAllah min as-sabirin. You'll find me from amongst those who are patient. How many of us would love to have children like that? Ze khotar loge khota hone. Amra khozo na ila sayyid, amra bachchan sho bolte sai amra bachchan holo hoito. Kintu sabok hoilo nije hoila thik hoito hoibo. The way we are with our elders, that's how our youngsters will be towards us. When we have etiquettes and the highest standard of respect for our elders, despite what they do, they are an elder. When you become an elder, Allah will place such youngsters for you as well, inshallah. So I'll end on this and say to Allah Azza wa Jal that He gives us the true understanding of deen, and that He gives us the tawfiq to do research into the seerah of not only the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam but other anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam, and derive the lessons from this. أقول قولي هذا وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. I ask brothers for forgiveness that we've gone over. গফর লাগি গেলে নানি আস্তা রাইট ওয়ে গফর যায়, কিন্তু আল্লাহ গফর রাম আম্বিয়া আলাইহিস সালাম গফর রাম গুলো আমরা সব পাইব ইনশাআল্লাহ।